This is The Warning. Donald Trump is in Saudi Arabia, and the American people are witnessing an obscenity unfurling at warp speed. They have never seen, and we will never see again, a presidency so venal, so corrupt, so obviously sick and selfish and fixated on its self-enrichment as this one. When Donald Trump lavishes praise on the Saudi dictator who ordered the murder of a Washington Post columnist, he does it with premeditation, he does it deliberately, and he does it without a care in the world that it is from Saudi Arabia that 15 of the 19 9/11 hijackers came and murdered almost 3,000 Americans. He has as much indifference for that day as he does for the only day in the 21st century that exceeds it in terms of mayhem and chaos and lasting damage. And that, of course, is the second great attack on the United States that took place in the 21st century, the attack on the 6th of January, 2021, when Donald Trump, with his lies, with his insanity, sent a mob to burn down American democracy in the Capitol. And when he pardoned those criminals and declared they were patriots, he set the stage for the third great assault on the United States government in the 21st century, the one led by the richest man in the world, a preeminent source of evil in the world. As Bill Gates properly called him out, the richest man in the world has taken unto himself the powers to kill the poorest children in the world. And that's who Elon Musk is. And there they sit together, a corrupt accumulation of power that does not believe in freedom, that does not believe in liberty. And what Donald Trump is doing, surrounded by some of the wealthiest and most powerful CEOs in the country, is selling off the United States to the highest Arab bidder. And along the way, he is collecting bribe after bribe after bribe after bribe, including the most ludicrous of all in the entire history of the United States, the unconstitutional and illegal granting of a $400 million airplane that might as well be dubbed Hamas One by the terror sponsors in Qatar. Now, let's talk about that plane. But first, let's understand the hyperdrive of efforts by propagandists like Sean Hannity and faux lawyers like the wretched Pam Bondi, who explain it's both proper and it's legal, and it's not, no matter how much ludicrousness is dished out. Now, understand something when you hear both of them, is that during the 1930s, everything that the Nazis did was legal according to them. They were assiduous about declaring that each action, each unlawful act was, in fact, legal. It was fundamental to who they were. And it seems that nothing has changed between 8 decades when it comes to the fascist demand, self-satisfying demand, that they call their theft legal while calling honest people criminals. Let's watch.
Part of your argument how the United States has paid untold billions and trillions of dollars securing every aspect of the world?
Well, I said that. I said, we've secured that part of the world for many years. So if somebody makes a gift, and I get nothing. I get to fly it like any other president would. Ultimately, it'll be at the end of its lifetime or at the end of the term, because we're going to have the other ones in by that time.
So the U.S. is kind of giving them gifts. It's called national defense.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I don't believe Donald Trump will ever fly a mile on this airplane, but I could be wrong. Now, it raises the question, though, about what is to happen to the airplane. And that opens the door to a different type of question, a fundamental strategic question about what is it that the Democratic Party is to stand for? What is it that the Democratic Party believes? And maybe in dealing with the hypothetical of what would happen to that airplane if in fact it was delivered and Donald Trump tried to take it to an Air Force base where it would then go to his library, or since libraries don't fly, it would go to him, where he would fly around the world on it in his post-presidency. Let's think about, let's call it Project 2029. And Project 2029, as we think about it, maybe ought to be thought about as the blueprint for the restoration of democracy, to the restoration of law in the United States, specifically the rule of law, the rejection of the absurd notion that America should have a king or an emperor or a Caesar or a dictator, and the notion that there is nobody above the president who exists as a king, above the law, above the Constitution, who can do what he wants, take from whomever he likes, because, well, he won an election with 49.9% of the votes, if I understand the proposition accurately. So we should imagine what happens to the airplane, starting with its seizure from whatever Air Force base. And what I think should be done with that plane is it should be towed to the water's edge and loaded onto a barge. And it ought to be taken out to the waters off of Mar-a-Lago and dumped into the Atlantic Ocean, where it can become an artificial reef for many happy fish. And I think it would be great to establish a program for low-income children that could come and learn to dive off of the beautiful artificial reef off of Mar-a-Lago. And they can be taught character education, specifically when they grow up, to not be like the man that assaulted the United States of America and tried to turn the Constitution into ashes. But what is the plan exactly for Democrats in this moment, who just yesterday, a day after Trump said that he would take the plane from the Qataris, thought it was a good idea to confirm his new Secretary of the Air Force, who would confirm the transfer by a vote of 75 to 24. Chuck Schumer appeared on CNN. And when we think about corruption, we should think about it fully. We should think about it totally. We should think about it in its full glory so we can appreciate how it is that we arrived at this moment. Chuck Schumer was asked a question that deserves an answer, even if the person who's asking the question was very much part of the problem, part of the national gaslighting, part of the cover-up, just like the person who wrote the book, Jake Tapper, who ludicrously tonight is in Washington, D.C., being feted by his fellow journalists for being a man of courage, for writing about the Biden gaslighting that he did so much as part of from his anchor chair. And yes, there are a couple of questions that Jake Tapper threw out from his daily perch, but not many. And if Jake Tapper thinks he's a man of courage for writing this book, dealing with the obvious that he would not deal with while it was happening in front of his face, then it helps me understand and should absolutely help you understand a bit more clearly of how we got here. But at any rate, Casey Hunt isn't running the country. She just talks to the people that do. So what matters here isn't so much her lack of credibility to ask the question, it is Chuck Schumer's answer to it. He's moving forward.
Did you really not have any idea that he was not fit to serve a second term?
Casey, we're looking forward. We have the largest Medicaid cut in front of us. We have the whole federal
you're
government
facing all
at
of this
risk.
because you lost a presidential election. And is that not Joe Biden's responsibility for deciding to run again?
We're looking forward.
That's the answer. And so that's the offer. In order to stop Trump, Chuck Schumer demands we, all the rest of us, must submit to his gaslighting. Forgive it. Move on. When in fact, that gaslighting is the cause of the insanity at hand, the corruption at hand. They let this happen, And now they demand absolute license to tell us, all the rest of us who saw it coming and tried to stop it, that no, we can speak of this no more, that we can't talk about it going forward, and we have to pretend that it didn't happen so we can be lined up to lose another election to the most dangerous forces that have assembled in America since the Civil War. It is morally outrageous, and it is politically unacceptable. And it is the fundamental reason why we have arrived in this hour at this transcendent moment of danger. And I'm going to read just 2 paragraphs of what that danger is and what this moment is from the pen of federal judge Michael Ludick, a man of integrity and one of the foremost constitutional scholars, defenders, jurists, and thinkers of our age. Thus far, Trump's presidency has been a reign of lawless aggression by a tyrannical wannabe king, a rampage of presidential lawlessness in which Trump has profoundly wielded the powers of the office and the federal government to persecute his enemies, while at the same time pardoning, glorifying, and favoring his political allies and friends, among them those who attacked the U.S. Capitol during the insurrection that Trump fomented on 6 January 2021. The president's utter contempt for the Constitution and laws of the United States has been on spectacular display since Inauguration Day. For the almost 250 years since the founding of the nation, America has been the beacon of freedom to the world because of its democracy and rule of law. Our system of checks and balances has been strained before, but democracy, government by the people, and the rule of law have always won the day. Until now, that is. America will never again be that same beacon to the world because the President of the United States has subverted America's democracy and corrupted its rule of law. The brokenness of our politics and of our media and of the unmoored ethics of our business elites, our media elites, and political elites is what has brought us to this moment of crisis. And unless and until we understand that, unless we can appreciate that we need a politics of honesty, of fierceness, and integrity to stand up for the American way of life, then Donald Trump's aggressions and encroachments against it will only continue to grow. So let me leave you with these words, which are a perfect summary of where we stand in this moment of American danger. This is the warning. Heed these words. They are important. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is the warning. I invite you to join this community where I promise to be honest, blunt, and direct about what is happening in this country. America is in crisis. Follow and subscribe to this channel and on Substack. Thank you.